Hey tankers, this is a guide to the Tier 2 German light tank, the Panzer II. I'm making the assumption here that you are fairly new to Blitz, so I'm going to cover some basic concepts that might be pretty familiar to more experienced players, but if you're relatively new to Blitz, it can take quite a while to figure out, and I'll cover even some things that I didn't know until quite a long time into my Blitz career. First thing we're going to do is take a look at the tank itself, so we're going to pause for a moment. Here we're looking at the Panzer II in the garage. Whenever you are playing a tank, if you want to do well with it, you want to think about how to optimize its advantages and minimize its disadvantages. You'll notice, first of all, that I am playing a really souped up Panzer II to the greatest degree possible. If you look at the top left, you'll see that the crew is at 100%. That means that the tank will be more responsive. It will turn faster, the turret will turn faster, the gun will fire faster, it will aim faster, you will see enemy tanks further away, so that is maxed out as much as it possibly can be. The way you get 100% crew is to, you can pay credits when you first purchase the tank to get from 50% to 75%, or you can pay gold when you first purchase the tank to bring the crew to 100%. I have played this tank enough to get it to 100% crew. I have also upgraded the tank. If we look at the tank's characteristics in the tech tree, you'll see that I have the top gun, the 2 cm Flak 38. You'll notice that I have the top turret. So the top turret gives me extra armor protection versus the basic turret, and it gives extra hit points. So that improves the characteristics of the tank. The best gun compared to the initial gun has a higher rate of fire, it has significantly more penetration, and it is more accurate, and it aims a bit more quickly. So that's going to improve the characteristics of the tank. I've improved the engine to its maximum capacity. So the first engine you start with has 130 horsepower, the second engine has 140, and the third engine has 160. That means that the tank will accelerate more quickly and do better on more difficult terrain. I've also upgraded the tracks. The first set of tracks provides the tank with a traverse speed of 35 degrees per second. The second provides the tank with a traverse speed of 40 degrees per second, so it's going to be able to turn faster. Not listed in these characteristics for the tracks is also that the tank will have better characteristics on difficult terrain, so it will climb hills more quickly. It will go through sand and mud and things like that more quickly, and the tracks will have more hit points. So if you get hit in the tracks, they will absorb more damage. If you jump off a cliff and land with significant impact, then you have less chance of breaking the tracks. So by upgrading the tank, I have improved its characteristics significantly. You can upgrade these modules, as they're called, by you need to get experience by playing this tank, or you can transfer free experience from other tanks, but that you can either do that only with a tiny percentage of your overall experience, or you can pay gold to transfer more experience, but that costs gold and is a limited precious resource in Blitz. So I've played this tank enough to be able to get those characteristics up. Additionally, I have upgraded the tank with consumables. If you look on the bottom here, consumables. I have a repair kit. That's a one-use consumable, and if I use that up, it repairs any damage that has occurred during the battle to modules of the tank. I have equipped it with a multi-purpose restoration pack. That serves the same purpose. It will damage modules of the tank, but it will also put out engine fires, and an engine fire that proceeds long enough will kill you. It will also heal the crew, so if a crew member has been wounded, it will fix that. The multi-purpose restoration pack costs significantly more than the individual repair pieces of equipment, but it performs all of those duties, and it also has the advantage that when you use it, it resets 60 seconds later, so you can use it multiple times during a battle. I've also equipped the tank with chocolate. This is an expensive consumable, but it improves crew skills. So this will effectively make the crew better than 100%. So the gun will aim faster, it will fire faster, the tank will turn faster, etc. by a little bit, but sometimes a little bit makes a big difference. I've also provided the tank with equipment. There are a number of different pieces of equipment that can be put on the tank. In this case, I've put on vents, which also improves crew skills by just a little bit. I've put on an enhanced gun laying drive, which improves the aiming speed by 10%. And I've put on coated optics, which improves the view range of the tank by 10%. So I'll see enemy tanks a little bit further away, and if I'm in cover, I might be able to see them when they can't see me. I've also taken a look at the ammunition. There are two types of ammunition that can go with this gun: AP, or armor piercing, and APCR, or armor piercing composite rigid. The regular ammunition is AP, and this tank has a large capacity for ammunition. It can carry a lot of ammunition. I have switched some of that out. You can change these sliders for APCR. The default, by the way, for buying premium ammunition is to pay gold for it. So normally each of these shells cost 1 gold, but if you tap here under shell price, you can pay credits for it. And since credits are much more easily earned within the game, a good choice is pretty much never to pay gold for APCR, but to pay credits for it. The advantage that APCR has is that it increases penetration significantly. So generally you're going to stay with AP, but if you find yourself in a situation where you cannot penetrate the armor of an enemy tank, then if you switch to APCR, then in many cases you're going to be able to get through. So during the game you can switch back and forth between different types of ammunition. I also want to think about the characteristics of this tank. The Panzer II, for a Tier 2 tank, it's a light tank. Many light tanks move very quickly around the battlefield. The Panzer II, even with the best engine and the best tracks, is not one of those. It's kind of slow and sluggish, and in particular it doesn't do well on terrain. Even with the best tracks, it does poorly on difficult terrain. It gets slowed down trying to climb hills, it gets bogged down and stuff. So this is not a mobile tank. What it does have is armor. If I tap on the tank's characteristics, by the way, when you first tap on the little icon of the tank up at the top right next to the battle button, you see the tech tree for that tank, and you see a little set of little graphs here of protection, firepower, etc. Mostly you should ignore those. Mostly what you should do is tap here and slide across. And this gives you much more detailed information about the characteristics of that tank. This tank has, for its tier, has quite good armor. Lots of tanks have 5, 10, 15 millimeters of armor. This tank has 30 millimeters of hull armor, and on the front, 20 on the sides, 15 on the rear. Similarly, with the upgraded turret, which has better armor, it has 30 millimeters on the front and 20 on the sides. It has some little weak points that you would see if you were aiming in on the tank, but in general, the armor of the tank is good, and in many cases you can use that armor to prevent yourself from being harmed by the enemy. And if you are up against a Panzer II, you'll find that sometimes it's hard to penetrate, or you might have to switch to APCR in order to get those penetrating rounds in. You'll notice that if you tap on a particular module, here I've tapped on the gun, I can slide further over and I can look at that gun in more detail. This gun has a rate of fire of 92.07 rounds per minute. What it's not telling you exactly here is that this is an autoloader gun. That means it has a magazine, in this case of 5 rounds. You can fire those rounds very quickly, and then there's a delay while the magazine gets reloaded and you have another 5 rounds. So that will significantly affect your battle tactics. You're going to want to fire those 5 rounds and then move to a position where you can't be fired on while the tank is reloading, and you'll see me do that multiple times during the battle. You'll see the average penetration. There's some variability there, but the average penetration is 39 millimeters for armor-piercing rounds and 51 for APCR. So there are many situations in which an AP round doesn't penetrate, but an APCR round does. Damage is the same either way. So each shot that goes through does an average, there's some variability, but does an average of 12 hit points of damage. You'll see the dispersion at 100 millimeters, I'm sorry, 100 meters is 0.45. That's the accuracy of the gun. You want that number to be as low as possible. All of the tier 1 and 2 tanks pretty much have poor accuracy compared to what tanks are going to be like later on. So that means in order to get accurate rounds in, you're going to need to aim in and let that aiming circle get small, and you're going to need to not be too far from the enemy tank. So those are some of the characteristics of the tank that we're going to need to keep in mind as we play the tank. We want to play to its armor. We want to use its autoloader gun and rapid fire characteristics when we can. And we want to be in situations where we can't get shot at while we are reloading the magazine, so that we're giving the enemy as little chance to do damage to us as possible. And now we're back in the game. We're playing on a map called Rockfield. We're playing on a special version of this that was available during the Halloween season. They decorated up, but the basic principles are going to apply. We spawned on the south side of the map and have moved up to the high ground on the left side of the map. You'll notice that there's some curves in the terrain that mean that I am partially covered, and I am trying to engage just one enemy tank at a time. I don't want to be the subject of focus fire. I want to have one tank that I'm dealing with at a time, and I'm using the terrain for that. I've knocked this tank out. You'll notice that I am aiming in before I fire, and I'm not firing as fast as I possibly can, because every time I shoot, ooh, took a big shot there. Every time I shoot, my aiming circle gets bigger. So unless I'm pretty close in, I need to fire, aim in, fire, aim in, and if I don't do that, I'm going to waste a lot of my shots. Bounce there, and I'm pulling back because I'm taking fire. You'll notice there's always a little indicator right in the center there of how many shots I have left. There are 5 shots available. Aiming in on this enemy tank, taking some damage. By the way, when it says another one will finish them, that has nothing to do with how much damage they've taken. It often is a complete lie. So I've just fired most of my rounds and I'm backing up. Anytime you need to, you can manually reload the magazine. So if you have only one shot left and you're under cover, often it makes sense to take advantage of that time under cover to reload the magazine. That's what I'm doing here. You can see that red circle's coming around to show that it's reloading. And now I have 5 shots in the magazine instead of 1. So you don't have to waste a shot firing a rock to get the magazine to reload. It was many games before I learned that little piece of information, and I wasted a bunch of shots just shooting at rocks because I didn't want to have a magazine with just 1 or 2 shots in them. I'm using this cover here. I only want to deal with 1 or 2 enemy tanks at a time, as few as possible, and I want to make it so that they can't shoot at me if at all possible. That little light bulb there means that I'm spotted. So if you see that, you know that somebody is looking at you. One thing that you can try to do, and I'm trying to do here, is use this bush for concealment. I've seen an enemy. I lost spotting on him for a second, but then I got him again. I took some damage, but it was worth it because I got a kill in. There's another enemy tank who's low on hit points, and he's dead. Now, we have a Panzerjäger 1. He's got a very strong gun, and I'm low on hit points, so he could kill me quickly, but he doesn't have a turret. And I'm going to use that. I can sit right next to him. He cannot fire at me. And I can shoot him at my leisure as long as nobody else can kill him. As long as I can stay around behind him and turn move around faster than he can turn to get me, I can circle him and get him. This is one of the disadvantages to tanks that have no turret. So I could do that at no risk to myself as long as there were no enemy tanks around. Now there's only one enemy tank left on their team, and one thing that happens, especially in any games, but especially lower tier games, is that people don't have a huge amount of investment in this game, and you get players who are they just abandon the tank, they stop playing, or their game has crashed. That is referred to as being AFK from the times when games like these were always played on PCs, and so AFK means away from keyboard. This player is not playing. My remaining teammate, there's only one of them, is on the cap circle, is going to be attempting to cap soon, so he's going to give me the opportunity to just kill this enemy tank. And you can see base capture and the counter's counting down. I'm going to have this guy dead long before the counter gets to 100, so the base capture is meaningless because the game is over when all of the enemy tanks are over. Or rather, dead. As you can see, I did quite well in this battle. I did far more damage than anyone else. I got a first class medal, which is pretty rare. I killed enemy tanks, so this went very well for me. Here's another game. This is on the map called Mines. Normally I would go up toward the center of the map, but I spawned or started the game way on the other side, and since the Panzer II is such a slow tank, by the time I got up there it would be not as helpful. So I decided to sneak along through the river there and look for flanking shots. So you notice I am exposing myself as little as I can. The enemy isn't quite sure what's going on here. And now we have a Panzerjäger who is perfectly capable of penetrating my armor. Generally, tank destroyers have disadvantages, but they have strong guns. You'll notice that I used up my magazine, and I'm backing up, trying to use the angle of the terrain here to minimize exposure. I've taken out the Panzerjäger. And I put some more shots on it into this guy, failed to penetrate. And then I did penetrate. Now I'm moving up under cover, and we have an enemy tank who's going to do something pretty foolish, which is that I think he didn't quite realize where he was, and he backed up, and he's disoriented, and I am not going to give him a chance to get himself oriented or figure out what's going on. I take him out. Now I'm going to move up here. The enemy has taken the capture circle. Generally, this is not as important as many new players think. Most games are resolved by killing all of the enemy team, which is what will happen in this game, has happened in the other games. The cap circle is something that's important tactically, but is not something you should panic over. Okay, the two enemy tanks up here. You'll notice that my commander was killed, which means that I'm going to use my multi-purpose restoration pack to heal him. And there's a little counter there showing how much more time it's going to be before I can use that restoration pack again. You'll notice I have also switched to APCR. The Panzer II, since he's smart enough to be facing toward me, is difficult to penetrate with regular ammunition, and even some of that armor is hard to penetrate with APCR. Anything red is not going to be penetrated, so I am aiming in on his lower glacis plate where I can penetrate. I get some shots in, I back up to reload so he can't shoot at me. I'm waiting for him to turn his turret, the side of his turret, which I can penetrate, the side of his hull, which I can penetrate. And I switch to AP because I don't need that to shoot this guy, but he backs away. And then I reload the magazine. My biggest concern here is to fight one tank at a time. I have a Panzer II up here who could be a significant threat. He's on the cap circle. I know that because it's counting down, but he's very low health. It takes only one tank round to kill him. Now I can worry about the other tanks at my leisure. There are 3 enemy tanks left. So I'm going to move down here. I want to deal with one at a time. I'm seeing that at least this one is very low health, so I can kill him pretty quickly and easily. I duck over here, put a shot into him, put another shot into him. He's dead. Now there's an enemy tier 1 light tractor over here. He is, compared to my tank, which is tier 2, if I face my frontal armor toward him, he is unlikely to be able to do much to me. And here's an enemy tank. I want to take him out first. He's very low health, and boom, he's dead. Now this game is won. The light tractor, unless I'm completely clueless, cannot really hurt me. He can't penetrate my armor, and I can kill him at my leisure. And that's it. This was a rare 7-kill game for me. I killed all of the enemy tanks myself. That happens very uncommonly. You get a special medal called a Rasenai. I got a gold mastery badge. That's also kind of rare. This is the best single game I've ever had in the Panzer II. I'm glad to have gotten it on video. So I hope you found this useful. If you're an experienced player, I hope that the basics weren't too repetitive. And if you're a new player, I hope you like this. Blitz is a great game, lots of fun. There are lots of nuances to it, and the more you know about those, the better you can do, and the more fun it can be. If you like this video, please give it a like in YouTube, and please subscribe to my channel.